Um, so what I was going with the last video is just to say that I think that what we have for so I was saying that a lot of a lot of music, especially the world over, contemporary music, all genres of music, and I was extrapolating to say even what's appreciated as classical European music before like what's um, what's taught as contact with African societies in colonialism. I don't have the references to bear. I have come across different sources that say that the guitar as a stringed instrument may come from Africa, um, and of course the drum. So anything that has to do with rhythm and drumming would have to therefore have African influence. The only music that I know of that wouldn't have, and there's no limitation to anything, including especially music, but I don't know of a lot of music that doesn't have a drum in it, besides European classical music. But I would think that even European classical music may have African influences in terms of the instruments that were employed back then may have uh, stemmed from understanding or pioneering around like Egypt, um, Hindu, Arabic, Greco-Roman, Egyptian influences. I know there's a lot of intermingling behind that, but I don't actually know the history of that. But all I meant to say is that I can't conceive of any music that wouldn't have African influence at some degree, including European classical music, simply because there had been, it's understood that there were people in Europe, what's called Europe, that would have African descent and in a dark hue even before colonialism. I can't think of the name of those people. Is it the, what is it? There's a name. There it is. Wait, the what is that? The there's a word for the black people of Europe, not including the Moors, or it maybe intermingled with the Moors. I don't know that, but there's a name for the what is it? Man, I don't mean to make something this like take this much license, but there's a name for the people, the peaks, the I think it has a P in there. The I think there's a P. Is it the um there's a, if anyone could help me in the comment, there are black people in Europe at all times, and there's not actually a distinction between Europe and Africa in geographical terms of human migration. So from that standpoint, Europe has always had African influences, even maybe classical music. But all I meant to say is that a lot of music, it's not as I'm taking some license with those comments, and I don't mean disrespect or disinformation with that. That's not what I mean with that. But all music can, a lot of our music can be appreciated as having African influences, and I'm saying that some of the experience of African language contrasted with Eurocentric language might have to do with economic rigors and how that was expressed as patriarchy in European society and matriarchy in African society. And then I took the further extrapolation of saying that, according to Arthur Avalon, um, all things have a dual component, a static and a kinetic, and also a masculine and a feminine component, no less than the letters. And that, from his standpoint, the vowels are more so living energies and are feminine and dynamic and potent. The most significant degree of something would be the feminine aspect, according to Arthur Avalon. And then the masculine is no less needed or indispensable, but is more so of a static, almost like a corpse or support to the feminine activity. Is the masculine component, and that could maybe be appreciated as consonants. And then the Eurocentric language has more of an emphasis on consonants, according to Dr. Umar Johnson, and the Afrocentric language has more of an emphasis in creativity around the vowels, and also and that might account for the fact that the Afrocentric language is matriarchal society, the rigors and demands and dynamics of a matriarchal society, and how that would make living viable in the geographical region of Africa. and then how a lot of our music, some of the most influential music and moving and compelling music, has always been influenced and attended by African FBA, foundational Black American and African influences, and some of what may be viable musically as compelling may be a function of the vowels, but then also just the matriarchy, the energy of the matriarchy, and the communing in the community that would prompt that and attend that and be reflected in that is significant. The community dynamics might affect Eurocentric language, but then also the singing of birds is that birds are completely unintelligible to human beings, and that might because of our sense of self and other would be different than birds and the dynamics of birds, because birds are yet communal and live in groups, and their existence is necessitated in group living, no less than mating and creating families. But their experience of one another and the environment would be vastly different than human beings, in terms of uh, like being dreaming and waking, consciousness, unconsciousness, subconsciousness would be different in a bird. Um, but then on top of that, the sense of self and other, so that birds may be completely unintelligible to human beings simply because our understanding of self and other is different. So what would be possible to say, to not say, to talk about as a bird would maybe be different to a human being. But I think that you can more so appreciate what they're saying if you dispense with the idea of self and other, and even the idea of energy. And I'm saying that one of the limitations of the English language, maybe even between Eurocentric, Afrocentric, matriarchal, patriarchal, both might take assumptions and liberties with the concept of self and other that would be different from a bird and make a bird completely unintelligible from that standpoint. But if they were appreciated just simply in terms of energy, almost as though you were listening to a language that you don't understand, but you can feel what they mean. But on top of you being able to feel what they mean, if they were human beings, you would at least be appreciate, but also be daunted and not be able to decipher their statements, because your sense of self and other and how much of self and other they're referring to with the language you don't understand would be different. Then you get all the way to a bird, and it's more so. But what you could appreciate a bird is that some people would say that animals are very receptive to energy, but I think that the very word and concept of energy is a blind spot and limitation of the English language, because the English language is the standpoint and the premise is self and other, hierarchy. You can't have self and other without an implication of hierarchy, and hierarchy is somewhat limits a language, such as the hierarchy within Eurocentric language is different than the hierarchy within Afrocentric language, which affords a different eloquence and a different concepts that can be conveyed from that standpoint. But if you were to listen to birds as though but I think energy most people couldn't enunciate what energy is, even scientists, simply because so long as there is a concept of difference, yet so energy is dynamic. It's not, you can't appreciate it in terms of individualism. I don't think you can truly appreciate energy in individual terms, although they can do sophisticated stuff like text messages and stuff like that with energy. But I think that there's still, as much as science can achieve, there's still a lot of science. There's more so of science that's not understood, and the more significant part would be that which is not understood to my taste. And I think Osho would confirm that. But this energy might not be decipherable in terms of self and other, in the limitations and inherent bias, and no less than hierarchy that would be part of that. But if you were to appreciate the birds and the animals as regulating balances, a lot of things that animals do are very obnoxious, like dogs barking are obnoxious, yet they're regulating an environment, because you know to step lightly when you hear a dog barking. You know what that means when a dog is barking. I think birds might be affecting us on different ways that we're conscious of, such as when a bird starts to sing and it makes you flinch or make an adjustment or a mistake. That'd be a subtle yet potent influence. But then deeper than that, they may be affecting our subconscious mind on way past what we can understand, such as the feeling you get when you've pulled an all-nighter and you start to hear the birds chirping. You're like, dang, I didn't even get to bed yet. Am I tired? Am I awake? You just feel crazy when the birds start chirping after you've been awake for a long time. And it might be because they're actually regulating your subconscious mind with their singing, if you were in balance with the nature, because nothing exists outside of homeostasis. Nothing. That